This is the Self-Preservation 6 panel. Welcome to the Art of Growth, where we are nearing the end of our season on subtypes and instincts. We just have this week and next week, and then we are going to conclude with a live instincts event on Wednesday, May 19th. This event will conclude this epic season where we have learned so much about how the instinct influences the type and vice versa. And we want to share some of our key learnings from that, also do some Q&A. And so you can get tickets to our live instincts event at our website right now, www.theartofgrowth.org. So come and hang out with us for the night. And let's talk about the instincts and the subtypes and what you're learning, and we will share our learnings together. If you haven't taken our free instincts test, you can do that on our website, www.theartofgrowth.org, and that will show you your sequence, which we are realizing has so much to do with not only our personality, but how we grow. You can also take our free Enneagram test there, as well as find out about group coaching, individual coaching, or sign up for our newsletter, which has helpful growth tips in it each week. So we look forward to hearing from you and excited for all of you who take a step closer to this community. This week we have our 3 Type 6 panels, starting with the Self-Preservation 6 panel today, the Sexual 6 panel tomorrow, and the Social 6 panel on Wednesday. So deep dive it is, and today let's jump into our Self-Preservation 6 panel.
Right. Well, welcomes to all of you for being on this podcast, the Self-Preservation 6. And what we want to highlight is the difference between the subtypes. So you could have a Self-Pres 6, a Sexual 6, and a Social 6 sitting in the same room, and you would hear a lot of similarities, but then there'd be these unique differences that really stand out. And so we're so excited to explore this with you and for you to tell us a little bit about who you are, how your 6 expresses itself through this instinct. So let's begin by first, would you introduce yourself and tell us where you are from?
My name's Ken, and I am from Madison, Wisconsin.
I'm Janae, and I am from Charlotte, North Carolina.
My name is Caroline, and I'm from Ohio.
All right, well, welcome. You know, 6s are considered among the most varied in terms of the subtypes of all the types. And we're finding that to be quite true as we're talking to 6s. The 6 has this need for safety, security, and support, but it manifests and shows up very differently among the subtypes. And so I'm curious to hear from you. How does that express itself through the instinct of self-preservation? And there are 3 subcategories. So there's the health and well-being category, and then there's resources and the management of resources, and then there's the home, the nest. And so let's begin with the first one, which is this topic of health and well-being. How does your need for safety, security, support interact with also your need for health and well-being?
I thought this one was actually funny because it really triggered my 6 when I was trying to answer it. So what I mean by that is I try to be a healthy person, right? Like there's no soda in the house, no cookies, no candy, no chips. I try and buy organic. But when I'm answering the question, I'm like, well, I don't make like wheatgrass smoothies every morning. So am I really healthy? Am I like totally exercisey? I mean, I don't think I like meet the qualifications. And that total like devil's advocate, both side flipping, flopping. You know, I've always done intense, like weightlifting type exercises, really into yoga, deep breathing, meditation, but still I'm like, I'm not like mental with it. I have balance. Like I'll eat a piece of chocolate. So maybe I'm not this.
Wow. So this self-doubt is one of the, features, of course, of the 6. That shows up even in the areas where you're actually probably better than most.
Yeah. And I checked in with friends and everyone was like, no, you are so healthy. You are so geared towards this. And I'm like, but really?
I also like that you said you checked in with friends.
Yeah.
We just added to it right there.
Yeah. And of course I doubted them. I'm like, I think you just don't know really healthy people. So.
Oh, there it is. It just continues, right? Oh, man.
Oh, I can relate to that. Like whenever anyone tries to counter the way I think of my own health, is like, no, you don't understand. I read this one as a positive and a negative, right? By the way, Janae, you exercise way more than I do, and are way healthier. Although I am kind of the one in the household who is most likely to get up in the morning and and do a bike ride or try to as far as exercising for myself goes. But it manifests itself in negative ways too. Like I have an 8-year-old and a 1-year-old, and I will he'll want sugar, right? And I'll just be at odds and just really fretting over how much you want sugar because I'm convinced that now he's ruining the rest of his life. So self-preservation just kind of off the rails, right? Imposed onto him.
Yeah.
And so that I have to keep in check as well.
That makes me laugh because I was just talking to my husband. We have a 2.5-year-old. And I'm like, we have got to get better at brushing his teeth. He could get a root canal. And I just don't think this is going well.
It's so funny. I don't have any kids, and I don't have a desire to have kids right now. But now I'm at the age where my friends are having kids. And I'm like, I couldn't do it. All those decisions, all of the opinions from everybody around you. I don't think at this time in my life, I'd be able to handle that in my body. I can handle myself. I'm really kind of getting a little better at that, but another human being, no way. Absolutely not. It terrifies me at this point in my life, I think.
Does anyone push this onto their pets? Because I do that as well. Like the treats that I buy for them and the food that I buy for them, and the vet knows me and my family. I'm like, hey, it's Janae. And she's like, oh, okay. How are you doing?
It's you again.
Yeah.
Man.
It's so funny you say that because my dog got sick recently, and he's got him as a 7-year-old senior dog. His previous owner passed away, and now he's getting kind of to the age where he's getting bumps and lumps, and I'm just losing my mind over it. Absolutely losing my mind.
One of the things that was interesting, Caroline, when you and I talked earlier was, we had talked about the fear, right? So the core emotion that 6s, many of them relate to and many don't. And so this is what's really fascinating about 6s. I mean, and just about as equally. So this is what's interesting is I'm talking to all sorts of 6s and I'm getting varied responses from yes, 100% relate to fear to no, not so much. I actually never thought I was a fearful type. And so in your case, you had a fascinating twist on this, which had to do more with the area of comfort and security. Could you expand a little bit on that? What's that like for you?
Since learning more about the Enneagram and being a 6, I realized what fear means for me. And I don't think I ever saw myself as fearful. But now that I look back, I'm like, oh, girl, you were afraid. But mainly that's shown up for me in comfort and security. Physical feelings have been very important to me throughout my life. I just absolutely become unhinged if my socks get wet. It's ridiculous. And if I don't have that baseline comfort, safety, I can't move on to anything else. I can't have conversations with people. It's something I've very much struggled with. I can't go and start my day if something feels wrong or feels weird or feels uncomfortable. It's very difficult for me to push past that. And that's something that I've always worked on and kind of struggled with and recognized. But if I don't have that baseline, I feel okay, then I can't move on to do anything else. I don't feel safe to be myself out into the world until I'm okay.
So your socks are dry.
Until my socks are dry. Yeah.
No,
and
I love that because that really, I've seen this in another number of other 6s. Again, this might be a more unique kind of expression of it, but it points to how diverse 6s are. And that goes to the well-being that we're talking about, is a sense of I'm okay, well-being in me and in my immediate environment, which then allows me to move on from there. But without that, there's no moving forward.
I super relate to that. Not necessarily in, I don't think in a fear way, but it's more of this intense distraction. And so it's taking all of my emotional control and regulation to manage the discomfort so I don't have any left to interact with others. Like I've had a battle with jeans my entire life. And I remember one day specifically, I was like, okay, I can do this. I'm going to wear these jeans. It's not that big of a deal. And my boyfriend at the time picked me up and we got like halfway to where we needed to go. And I was like, I can't do this. And I ripped the jeans off in the car. And I was like, we have to go home. We have to change. Like, I just can't be in these pants and be expected to do what I have to do today. And it really does come out in fashion, not like trying to be runway or have the trendiest clothes, but like the physical comfort of what I'm wearing is huge.
You know, I can relate as well. I just had this thought run in my head that self-preservation could be called self-perseverating, because, you know, I'm the same way. I'll focus on it and like have a very hard time letting it go. Once that's the thing that needs to be fixed, then until it's fixed, you know, and eventually my wife will just fix, should we just go home and change the, you know, your socks or whatever? I mean, it could be any of those for me. I hear you on both in the sense of, you know, if I feel safe and secure in order to be in the world, right, to talk to others, because if I'm not there, then it's like, okay, I need to go away until this is fixed. But it feels very much part of the self-preservation instinct. At least that's how I feel like it's manifested in me is fixating on a fixed point, whatever it may be. And it could be something tangible like the coat I'm wearing, or it could be more intangible. Like unconsciously, I've decided that I'm going to walk from this room into the next room, but now someone's in my way. And I'm, you know, a child usually, and I'm getting extremely impatient with him. It's like, you're in my way. You know, it sounds like this little minuscule little thing, but it's just like, that's a way that manifests in really small ways all throughout the day. And I get really agitated as soon as something gets in between me and that fixed point.
Yeah. So this is where some self-pres 6s will sometimes be mistyped or mistype themselves as a 9 because of this piece, this area of comfort, physical comforts, and, you know, being comfortable in this world, also avoiding conflict. A lot of self-pres 6s will avoid conflict. So there's that all kinds of plays within that, but that's a different kind. And I love how you're expressing it because it's making a lot of sense. It's very much from the headspace of like, it's stuck, it's on my radar, it's in front of me. I can't get around it. And until I resolve it, that I can't move on. So that's really helpful. The second category is resources and practical know-how. So talk to me about resources, money, food, having enough of this stuff. This is about like that existential sense of I don't have enough and I need more, or we're going to be poor and we're going to be living on the street pretty soon. That kind of a feeling that exists among all self-pres types, or can exist among all of them. So I'm curious about that for you.
I've always had a big fixation on money since I was little. I remember I would get a very small allowance and I would save it up to buy a toy. And the day that I learned about sales tax, that just blew my mind. I didn't have enough money. And I remember like little postcards where I'd write out what I wanted, how much it was, and then calculating the sales tax. So I'd be prepared. You know, it's a toy. My parents would pay the, 10 cents extra. But the idea of not having enough money just started there when I was very little and is prevalent today. You know, my version of broke is a lot different from other people's version of broke, I think.
I am constantly checking in because I'm so preoccupied with retirement and I am so just proactively worried of like, what's it going to look like then? How are the inflation rates going to change? Are we really going to have enough? And I really do have to catch myself sometimes. And I'm like, okay, you're taking this too far. It's out of your control. And I have to recenter myself. But it is such an intense anxiety. Like when we built our house, and it was the first house we'd ever purchased. And I think for the first year, I woke up like sick to my stomach. And it took a year of paying the mortgage and being fine to be like, okay, we can do this. Like, this is actually workable.
Yeah.
You know, I've been a musician my whole life, so I've been short on finances pretty much, all the time. And although it's gotten better over the years, but I haven't necessarily fretted over it, but I have my eye on it. So I'm always looking at it. I'm the budgeter of the house. I'm the one that's got the software and does the, and downloads the bank accounts and then I do have my eye on it so that I might be able to see something coming up, like, oh, we need to, look out for this or that. And I've always fallen into the role. I remember even early on in a band when I was just in college, and I just became the money guy, because I was the one that was deemed responsible and could keep track of it. And it was just in my wiring. So I could relate to it in that way.
Mm.
Well, and I don't know if this overlaps with the nesting, because I also don't like surplus. Like, I don't like it when things build up and it gets pantries are a huge trigger for me, because I feel like people will just have 7 boxes of cereal and I'm like, you're not going to eat that, and it's going to go bad, and it's wasteful, and you wasted your money on that, and other people need it. So whether it's food or money or clothing or anything, it's like I have this threshold. And once I meet that and that soothes my anxiety and I feel safe, then I can give anything away. And so I've noticed it's not about, being like, what is that, Donald Duck, who sits on the pile of money? Like, I don't need that. I just need a certain amount.
That's so consistent with a number of other self-pres types who have said, across the types who have said very similar things in terms of that threshold. It's not about chasing and having an abundance, an excessive amount. It's about meeting that need, that self-preservational need of, it's about survival. That's what it starts there. It's not about accumulation necessarily. Although what's fascinating is that there are plenty of self-pres who do accumulate, because it's the sense of, I need to be prepared for what could come around. So I'm curious to hear from the other two here. What's that like for you?
Well, I was going to say, I think what the resource that I am accumulating is information. Speaking of the 6 being a head type, right? I've said, kind of like you said, like with money, it hasn't been a concern of making sure we have, lots of it. But I've said this out loud to my wife, which is, I'm okay if we don't have a lot, as long as I know exactly how much we have. Because then I can, then that provides the security, because then I feel like, okay, now I can adequately make the next decision that I need to. I have the information now.
So it's a preparation in order to plan.
Yeah, preparation. And I do, when you're talking about the pantry, I could relate to that, because I am the one to, I'm at the grocery store and I'm seeing, it's the buy one, get one 50% off. Like, well, I'll go ahead and get the second one, because, it's probably better to have a little more. So I stock up as well.
For one of the first times in my life, I've kind of been steady where I am and steady with money, because I studied French in school. And so I've gone abroad a few times, and I would save up enough money and be prepared and be ready. And then I'd go and I'd spend it all. Then I'd come back and do it again, save up and then be ready and then go again. And so it's been interesting in the past year having a little more in my savings than I've ever had. And I find myself, I'm not hoarding things as much. Like pieces of string that I could use for something. Like, I don't need to keep that. If I have to go out and buy some string and some crafting things, because whatever I need to do, make presents or something, I have enough money to do that. So I've found myself I stopped saving things just in case. Because before I would rather make something from scratch than spend money on something. But now I have money, so I'm feeling a little better. I'm kind of loosening the grip on that anxiety and that hoarding and that, keeping hidden just in case kind of situation.
That is like one of the things when I was going through this that I thought was fascinating, just kind of reflecting, because I'm like you, like if I have this and I plan to spend all of it, I can. Right? Again, it's not this like this hoarding mentality, but I also do like to save. And so it's this weird juxtaposition of like when it feels okay to let go and when it doesn't. And I haven't quite figured out where that line is. I just know it when I'm there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I just don't feel anxiety right now, so I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
And sometimes that doesn't always help. Like I was talking to a therapist once, and we spent literally the entire session on whether or not I should buy Doc Martens. She's like, you've wanted them for 2 years. Like they're $120. I'm like, yes, but what if I don't wear them?
For those who aren't head types, this might be hard to keep up with, but what you're hearing is their internal struggle. This is what being in the head types and what self-preservational sixes deal with a lot, which is this going back and forth, this vacillating, needing to see something from every angle. So I just want to say to those who aren't head types, if you're having trouble keeping up, like this is what they experience all the time. And you're kind of seeing it in real time work itself out right here. So this is, I think, a really good demonstration. And I would just remind us to observe it happening because they're letting us into that world right now.
Yeah.
Does anyone do this with their emotions?
Yeah, I think so.
I
flip-flop back and forth. And I also ask other people what I should think or how I should feel.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'll Google it, which is so silly. Is it crazy to feel so worried when your dog is sick, you know?
Yeah.
I need that. It helps to have that validation. Like, okay, it's okay for me to feel that way.
Well, I even like look at my emotions as a resource. Like, okay, if we really need to do that tonight, I don't think I have enough bandwidth, so I'm going to have to take a nap. And then I find ways to like breathe more energy room. I don't know how to describe it, but so then I can get through whatever it is that's coming up. And I analyze what my capability is by how much like emotional bandwidth I have left for the day.
I find that when my physical resources, like how much I've eaten or how much I've slept, if those are low, then game's off, can't do anything. It's over.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Sleep is a high priority for maintaining that emotional resource. We were talking about fear before, and I feel like something you were saying earlier, Caroline, about not sure about how you're gonna. Sorry, it was the Doc Martens. What happens if I don't wear them? And it sounds almost cliche to say, but it's the fear of fear. Often is a motivation, right? It's like, but what if? And then often when I bring that up to people, then at least the people who have the helpful responses will say things like, well, let's play it out. Let's play out the what if, so it helps me process, okay, I'm afraid that would happen. And okay, could I be okay with that? And that's a way to kind of work through it.
Mm-hmm. Like what's the actual catastrophe and can you handle it?
Right.
Yeah.
The apocalypse is not on the other side necessarily of buying a pair of Doc Martens. And that is what you can head down as a head type. And so again, the head types, all head types can think of anything and anything is possible and anything could happen. I mean, it's just for the six can tend to go towards some of those darker places as well. Let's talk about the third category, which is home, nesting, and creating that comfortable space, that safe space. Talk to me about how that shows up for you.
So I desire a cozy home, but I would say that my actual work to keep that home cozy doesn't line up with my desire for it. But I'm going to take it a little bit to an emotional level of a sense of home or a sense of coziness, in that I will... the way this manifests itself in a, keep using the word negative, but in a less pleasant way, we'll say, is making myself small. So like, I feel like I'm out there too much in the world, or I'm giving, too vulnerable, or done too much. And so, or someone's angry with me or something like that. And so it's like, okay, I'm just gonna, retract into my, proverbial hole in the ground here and be cozy and safe.
I love that, because it's not just the physical domain. It's a mindset. And so that's really helpful.
When I was thinking of this, I was thinking about like imagining a bubble, even if it's only my bed. Going through college, you live in different apartments and dorms, and everywhere I've been, I've had just a little bubble that I can kind of close off and feel like this is only my space. This is only my place to go and feel safe and be away from everybody else. And the bubble kind of gets bigger and smaller depending on where I've lived, but there's always been, like right now it's my apartment. I open the door, I'm in my bubble. When I was sharing a dorm room in college, it was my little loft bed, that tiny little strip of, long XL twin size bed up there. That was the bubble. So that's kind of how I've felt about home.
My bed is so important to me. And even when I was little, like kindergarten, first grade, I used to tell my mom that when I died, I was going to take my bed to heaven with me. Because like going to the rest and the relaxation and like the safety and the just like the snuggle. Oh, yeah. And, like talking about like your bubble and a place that is just yours, that so resonates with me. When we got married, I was joking with my husband about like, well, why don't we just buy a duplex and then we can like make a door and just go back and forth. That way I still had my own place.
You wanted your own cave. Yeah, your own little hole in the ground.
Yes. And he's like, Janae, it's okay. And so what we ended up doing is, we're really lucky, but we, because we built our house, I made it so in our budget, we could each have our own bathroom. And that felt so good to me to know that no matter what, like I have that place in the house that's mine. And I swear that's why it's been so easy to move in together, because I'm like, I have my own bathroom.
That's fantastic. You negotiated it smartly because you knew your needs. And that's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a big struggle. And it's kind of related to, sleep in bed as well. When my girlfriend and I first started dating, she would be over at my apartment all the time. And I felt like I needed to be on with her all the time. And eventually, as the years went by, that faded. And, she's in the bubble. She can be in the bubble. It's okay. But before, it was like, you're not in my bubble yet. And I would cry and she'd be like, why are you crying? And I'm like, I just want a nap. Yeah. I just want to be away from you, a nap. I like being with you, but I need to be in my bubble, but you're here in my bubble with me. And I can't handle that.
Yeah. So Jake was even, we didn't live together before we got married. And I was, trying to think of all of these things before we moved in. And eventually it was, okay, when I come home from work, if you've had a bad day, put a tie on the outside of the door. That way, when I pull into the driveway, I know like Janae gets the whole master bedroom, both of the bathrooms, like all that space. And she just needs that alone time because that bubble, like I so resonate with that. And I don't know how he got in, but he is in my bubble now. And of course I need like alone time, like if I'm feeling touched out, having like a toddler and all of that, but it feels different for him. Like I don't have to escape him anymore. I can be in the bedroom, like with the door open.
Yeah. I'm so curious to hear back from our followers, our listeners on this piece of it, the bubble, because this makes, I think, intuitive sense for a lot of people out there, that there's this sort of space that you gradually allow only the closest people into. And for self-pres types, it's a real, almost a tangible feeling of that space. And so it's really necessary to protect it. And that makes a lot of sense.
And I find that when someone is in that bubble, then sort of blending these things, they also become a resource. So once they're safe, then I'm going to turn to them for help.
Yeah. Yeah.
It takes me a really long time to actually ask people for help. And I've noticed that, like, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, like the negative of not being social or whatever is I end up putting a lot of pressure on the people who are in my bubble, which is like basically Jake. And maybe I have like a half of another person in there. They get like all my attention and all my focus because they're the only people I feel safe relying on.
Mm-hmm.
That makes a lot of sense. This gets even further down the line with developing this thought around the self-preservation instinct for sixes. The way you're describing it is brilliant, because that's a lot of what the literature has suggested about self-pres 6 is that there's this sort of, the resources are in the support system is really close to you. It's not extended further out. It's this like, who are my people? And the ones that are really close to me. And that those are the ones you rely on, but you're not going to go beyond that necessarily to seek out support from outside systems and people from outside that bubble. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, let's move to the neutral instinct, what we're calling the neutral, the second, the one that you do a lot of. There's a little bit more. It's not as high as the dominant, but you do a bit of that. And then we'll get to the third one, which is your sort of repressed or neglected one. Talk to me about the neutral one. Which one is it for you, and how do you use it?
Well, I've been excited about this because I've known I'm a 6 for quite a long time now, over the past decade at least, and more recently learned about the instincts and that I was self-preservation. But then it's been more recent that I've learned about the stack, right? Sexual is my second or neutral. And I was always reading the literature about sixes and this phobic and counterphobic, right? It is often the words used about 6. And I always sort of took issue with that because I'm like, well, I'm, on a Monday I'm phobic and on Tuesday I'm counterphobic. And I'm deathly afraid of driving the car, but I've learned to fly a plane solo, and
wow.
And so I think, at least what it feels like to me, is it's the sexual instinct and the self-pres sort of countering each other.
Oh yeah, sure.
And for me, moving into the sexual instinct is also moving into my body more than my head.
Okay.
So it's kind of all intertwined. So, for example, when I'm in the frozenness of the self-pres, right? They're like, oh no, the committee has taken over, and what if, but let's think about this, and oh, I don't know, and the sexual is what can break through that. The sexual is like, you know what? Just do it. Pick one.
Yeah.
And go. And when I can tune into that, it's really helpful. I have my extremely small bubble, like everybody's talking about here. I have my family and 1.5 super close friends that I over rely on, but I can stand on a stage and sing in front of 1,000 people, and that's no problem. And I think that's partly because of the sexual instinct in there. But there's a little more to it too, because that's actually a structured interaction. Actually.
Yeah.
I really, really resonate with that, because if it is a part of my job and there's like rules and I know the routine and I know what to expect and I know how to meet those standards, then I can act like the most outgoing, social, brave person in the world. But if it's just me, like my wedding, like 20 people, what? That's it. Like not going higher than a 20-person guest list. But if it's work, I could go on a stage and give a presentation and it's fine.
This is so fascinating because and I'm learning so much listening to you. This is the self-preservation again acts as these sort of like boundary markers. It acts as a protective structure. And people find that a lot of people who are saying like, yeah, it gives me that, like, as so long as it's within these boundaries. It was a nurse who was describing this. Like, self-pres is my first, sexual is my second. I can go deep with people. I can connect. But it's within these boundaries, within this structure here. And that gives me my sense of safety.
100%. And I also resonate, Ken, with what you're saying. Like, when I am getting caught up here, that's when I know I take a deep breath and then I drop into my gut and I'm like, okay, just like, where is that feeling leading you? And that's often how I make the decision after I research it for, 2 weeks.
Caroline, what about you?
I would say social is my second or neutral, and sexual would be my third. I guess the idea of risk, I don't take risks. If I'm doing something risky, I make it so that it's no longer risky. I don't go to my gut and just choose. That's not going to happen. I'm going to, I think one of the big reasons why my social is my second is because I very much use other people to help guide me in what I should do, in knowledge, using their experiences, their mistakes to help me before I venture out into whatever I'm going to do. I feel like I use my social to help feed my self-preservational a little bit. I notice people, I notice the herd, I notice community, but I don't care for it too much. I am very social at work. So my dog has been sick and I haven't been very happy with the vet I've been with. So we're all working at home, but we have a messaging system together. So I've been just going along the train of everybody, people I've never actually really met, but I guess I work with a big company, people who have dogs, are in the area, have different vets and experiences and know stuff. And I'm just cold IMing people all over, being like, hey, are you busy? I have a question for you. And I guess in that way, I see the community, I see the social, and I'll participate in that, but I like to use it for my own benefit, I suppose. That makes sense.
So I love it because this is the diversity and that I love getting on panels where there's two of the same sort of stacking or sequencing and maybe one or two of a different stacking sequence. And that is really great because what you can start to see is how different those two, and we're finding this out to be true across the panels, is that your first and second actually create a significant amount of your personality. And the third doesn't really make much of a difference, but what a big difference it is. So for you, that social, that makes sense. That becomes a resource where you do extend a little further than the home. You have your immediate, I rely on these people, but because there's also social second to you, you've learned to access that and bring that into your sphere as well for resourcing, for, getting the information you need, for thinking about things. Whereas Ken, you and Janae, it's the sexual is what pushes you to take a bit more risk, to broadcast a little bit, to put yourself out there, again, within the structure and the confines of the self-preservation instinct, but it's still playing itself out that way. So that's really, really great to have this understanding between the different sequences here. Well, let's look at the third. This is your neglected. This is the one that causes you problems. And so the three questions we have is, which one is your third? What problems has it caused you? And how are you growing through it? How are you integrating it into your life?
My third is social. And Caroline, I resonated when you said, I can read people. I'm good at picking up energies. I'm good at recognizing when somebody needs something. And then I'll nudge Jake and I'm like, hey, you need to go check on those people. And, I am so community driven in the idea of I want to caretake the community without getting involved. So I'll do a donation, but that's as far as I'm going to go. And it causes stress because I guess importantly, Jake is very social. And I'm I'm exhausted by the idea of going into that group. And if I go into that group, can I drive separate so then I can leave? And, when I was first meeting his friends, it was almost like I needed a babysitter because I can't just go into a large group and socialize. So if he would wander away for 30 minutes, I'd be lost. And now that I have a child and the idea of him being on like soccer teams and things of that nature and, getting involved at the school, like this is all pushing me to a place that I don't enjoy, but I know I need to go. And so I'm trying to take pieces of my sexual and just focus like, okay, there's one person right next to me. So I'll make one connection with them. And then eventually I'll get to know everyone in the classroom. And then I'll feel safe. So just trying to rely on my other strengths and manipulate that into the social arena.
That's so funny because I'll go the opposite. I love to bake, and it's just me and my girlfriend here, and she doesn't like sweets that much. So I would bring it into the office. I have no problem going down the aisles, people way above me in the company. Like, I'll find out later they're CEO, something. I don't even know. But I'm like, do you want a cookie? I find it very easy
That's awesome.
to do that. But then the idea of sitting down one-on-one with somebody, or the idea of, I have some coworkers that will, text me, or, I have someone who lives down the street and I'll bring him things for his family that I bake, but I can't hold a conversation over text. I'm like, yep, it's great to see you. Okay, bye. That's it. That's done. So the opposite way, I'll go from a large group of people, very light social, general interactions, but the one-on-one, the individual, that just terrifies me, and it's not something I'm very comfortable doing. And I'll end conversations very quickly.
Yeah. So that's great, because that's your sexual is your third, and the self-pres, I described that's close. Social is wide, and then sexual is sort of deep. So how are you moving through, so what problems has it caused you, if you're able to perceive any at this point? And then how are you growing through to moving into more of the sexual instinct?
To be honest, I'm just figuring this out, so I haven't had much growth. I guess I could be on the art of figuring out how to grow podcast.
That's really what this is. I mean, let's be honest.
Totally. That we should name it. Yes, sure.
It's less catchy of a name. So right. It's
harder to say,
better, right? Yeah.
So I guess, I'm just feeling it out, just kind of recognizing my habits, and I'm just at the recognition phase, to be quite honest. I'm just starting to see these patterns and these habits, and I don't know yet.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, this is where you are, and we celebrate that. Yeah, absolutely.
Caroline, earlier when you said that you go to others for, I used the word research. I don't think you used that, or maybe you used that word. I can't remember, but that's what stuck in my head. With sexual instinct second, I don't do that. I do just the opposite. I just charge for like, oh, I got it. Blinders are on. I've got the thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it. And then start running into all these problems, and then discover that, way further down, there's all these other people who have also done that, and they've run into some of those problems too. And here's what might help. But by that time I'm, 6 feet into the snowbank, and my wife is a social 4, and her last instinct is sexual. So we have some interesting, things flipped around with us. So I cause her to cringe on a daily basis with my I'll be the sexual instinct. So I'll be going out there and be like, and clothes don't match, or shirt's dirty, or say something that she'll just be like, oh, I can't believe you just said that, and I'm either oblivious to it, or I just don't care, because I'm kind of, but it's helpful. And the sexual instinct, I'm getting this image right now as we talk, as this sort of, for me, because it's the middle one, is sort of a bridge.
Yeah.
And so if I harness the sexual, it actually can help me get into the social. So the sexual, it tends to be isolated, and causes me to have this persona of being, people have called me intimidating, which to me is baffling. But I think it's this aloofness that can come about with that poor social or suppressed, right, social instinct. But taking the risk, that's where I can pull in some of the strength of the sexual, to say, okay, well, even though I'm sitting here shaking in my seat, ready to say the next thing, I could just be quiet, give space, be open, go deep, and just listen, and take away your fixed points, because you're not in control of that when this other person is talking, and we might go somewhere totally different, and it's a lot of work to do that.
Yeah.
But that's a way of using the neutral to try to push into the third instinct.
Yeah, and we haven't coached you on saying that at all. But that's what that's what I love about this. You're nodding your head. We did not coach you on this. No. I didn't coach you, Janae, on that, how you're using it as a bridge as well. I said nothing of the sort to either one of you. And yet this is what we're discovering over and over and over again through the podcast, through our individual coaching, through our group coaching, is people are discovering this on their own, that there's a way to access the third, the neglected. And it's oftentimes through the middle one. And it seems also to match up pretty well with even the centers of intelligence. And we did podcasts on that, your 3 centers, head, heart, body, and that there's an order to that as well. And your neutral one or the middle one tends to be the bridge to the third. So it's so fascinating to hear how that is working out for you as well. So yeah, really cool.
Well, that's interesting. I didn't know that, so that's actually fascinating to hear. And the beauty of it is that just came to me while we were talking just now. So it's kind of that's a fun.
Wow, okay.
I'm excited to hear from other 6s because as much as I've known I'm a 6 for a long time, I've talked with very few others who self-identify as a 6 and want to talk about it.
Yes, none of my friends, like no one I'm surrounded by, is a 6.
Wow,
So
okay.
this is fun.
Yeah.
Because I think I think I'm hilarious. Not like comedian funny, but I'm like, oh my God, why am I getting so worked up about
you laugh at yourself.
trying to category myself as a wellness person? Like, come on.
There are a lot of folks who say 6s can turn out to be amazing comedians for that reason, that you can laugh at yourself and you're able to voice your own neuroticism, that sort of head spinning kind of thing that's happening, and be light about it. And that's what's attractive for me as a 7. I'm on the opposite end, so I don't like to voice my worries, my anxieties. I don't like anybody to know about them. I don't want to talk about them. I don't want to think about them.
Mm-hmm.
But 6s can, and you do, and you go in the places that I fear to tread. And that's to me courage. So I admire that. I look at that and I think, wow, that's amazing that you can do that. And it makes me laugh too, because you're willing to just put yourself out there and kind of joke about it. So this has been wonderful to hear you talk about yourself that openly and kind of be okay with it.
Well, I'll see your humor and I'll raise you with some darkness.
I like where this is going already.
Because that wit, the wit of the 6, right, is a place to hide. It's a place to avoid vulnerability, at least for me. It's a way to express a feeling in a way that doesn't open myself up completely.
Okay.
Like here's a funny example. You see a cute baby, and I'll say, the baby's obviously just extremely cute, and everyone's looking at them. I'll say, oh, that baby's not cute at all. You're obviously not cute at all. And in the context, if you could imagine being in there, it's like, kind of laugh, right? Because yeah, right. This baby's not cute at all. Like, this baby's so cute, right? But so it's humor. Maybe it's not funny. Maybe I just think it's funny. But what I'm not saying is, oh, you're so cute.
You're not opening up your heart more. The heart center. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, I totally get that. I see that in myself as well as a 7. So head types can do a lot of this sort of hiding behind dumb comments. I've made really dumb comments that sometimes are dark and not funny at all, but were funny to me. And I can see it. It's a kind of a avoidance of that, just putting your heart out there and feeling exposed in that way. So, yeah.
I suspect the ability to criticize myself, I don't want to speak for all 6s, obviously, but is, we're already analyzing it so much that it's not really that hard to voice it. Like there's nothing really you're going to say that's all of a sudden going to make me more worried, because I can make myself more worried than you can make me.
Yeah.
Yes. I find that at work, like a lot of people want to avoid constructive criticism or feedback, or even like with the Enneagram. Like I've had a lot of people say, I don't like this because it's pointing out everything wrong. And I'm like, I thrive on this. Like, it is fun for someone else to analyze me with me.
Yes, this is classic of sixes and of other head types as well, but mainly sixes. This is what I've said about to other people who don't understand sixes. When a six is looking at an object or criticizing something, it's omnidirectional. I mean, you'll criticize yourself, your own thoughts, your own ideas, as well as someone else's. But when someone else hears that, that feels like a personal attack. When the six is trying to say, all we're doing is looking at this thing, this object, and making sure that we have seen every angle to this. Would you join me in that process of looking at every angle? Because I might have missed something. I'm not afraid of the dark. I'm not afraid of the details. I'm not afraid of the devil that's behind some of these details. I am, but I'm not. I am, but I'm not. I want to look at it. I want to find it, because better to find it than to be surprised by it, right?
Yes.
So this is what a lot of other people do not understand. I see a few of you laughing. So am I articulating it somewhat the way it is for...
I love how you just said, I'd rather find it than be surprised by it. Yes.
It's so validating, because this is something that I run to with my wife. Again, close resource. It's always like, oh yeah, I don't know. That color is kind of, well, if it's that color, then isn't it going to cause this problem? It's like, oh, so you don't want that one? Oh no, I didn't say that.
It's just the process of thinking out loud. Like we're just exploring right now. We're just thinking about this. And
Exactly. Saying something negative doesn't mean, rejecting it or that everything is bad about it. It's just one factor. Yes.
Yeah. It's like this weird ability to not attach yourself to the negative. Like, I can sit here and I can ruminate in it, but I'm not attaching any of this to me yet.
Yeah. I mean, I call my individual record label, which is just me, Skeptic Rock Records. And I thought of that, 20 years ago, where I was always the idea of the skeptic. And this is before I even knew the whole loyal skeptic and all that, sex.
Wow.
It was just, like there's strength in skepticism.
Yeah. I see that. Sure. That's fascinating. Well, I can't say thank you enough. I mean, you folks, this is killer good.
That was all killer, no filler. All killer, no filler.
I'm sitting here going, this is just, I could keep going. This is so rich and so deep and so insightful. And man, thank you so very much to each of you for being here, taking your time, putting yourself out there. I understand, it takes a measure of working yourself up to being on a podcast and doing this. And so I deeply appreciate that. Appreciate your time, your thoughts, your heart. Thank you.
Yeah, I can't agree more. This has been a fascinating look on it. And there's so much nuance there, and the back and forth. And I can just imagine how non-head types are hearing this. But I think it's really amazing to learn from and to understand a little bit more about people that may be in their circle. And you're giving that gift through your own story. And so we can't thank you enough for that. It's amazing. And we will talk to you again soon. Bye. So thank you for listening and learning with us. Remember to join us for our Live Instincts event on May 19th. You can get tickets at www.theartofgrowth.org. Make sure you're subscribed to keep up with all of the really cool content we have coming up. If you leave us a review on iTunes, it helps the algorithm that helps other people find this work. Follow us on Instagram at Art of Growth, and reach out to us at our website if you have any other questions. But for now, my friends, take a deep breath and remind yourself that you are here. Exhale to release the anxiety that you might be carrying with you. And know that you are deeply okay. You are deeply held. That the support you long for is available to you and present within you. May the peace that passes understanding be yours today. Grace and peace, my friends.